Welcome back to season 5 of Soul Talk with Wara. As always, I am your host, Wara Grant. Soul Talk is a place where powerful, life-transforming topics and conversations are shared to help you build a truly soulful life. We focus primarily on topics related to business, strategy, lifestyle, faith, style, fashion, and legal topics. If you are tuning in for the first time, welcome. But please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Soul Talk with Wara, and you can also watch us on your Roku TV. Today, I am really excited about my guest. I have the pleasure and honor of speaking to an inspiring and gorgeous woman. We all know her as the iconic women's executive coach. She was my very first guest on Soul Talk with Wara, season 1, when we first launched as a podcast. And she has remained consistent with her messaging. Over a decade, she has a vision to drive, to continue to build women to become the iconic women that they were destined to be. I am a product of her mastermind courses. And we're actually on the set, we're shooting on this set for the first time based on some of the courses that I've taken with her in terms of up-leveling. And I'm really excited to have her on the show today. Ekene is a feminine leadership coach. She's a speaker and a podcaster. She creates content, courses, and communities to help women to discover how to be iconic and lead from their feminine so they can stand out from the crowd, increase their impact, influence, and income without sacrificing their femininity or womanhood. Welcome to the show, Ekene. Can you imagine? Season 1, you were my first one. And then when I decided to move to this set, I said, you have to come again.
Thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You know, started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know, what I love so much about your courses and your program is the consistency.
Yeah.
And the authenticity. You stay true to your messaging. And I myself, being, you know, I've done most of your courses, gone to a lot of your programs, and I still see the same consistency, but I also see a growth, significant growth.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, Sue, sister.
Praise the Lord. No, but real talk, yeah, it is about consistency and growth. And I see the same thing in you. I'm just blown away. I love your commitment to excellence. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coaching me.
Okay.
So today I want us to, you know, talk about one particular topic, because you consistently post short videos on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And there was one that garnered so much views, and it was leading with labor versus leading with value. Like, I was reading the very passionate comments, and I'm like, what is it about this topic? Tell us, what do you mean to lead with labor versus leading with value? Just share with us, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was part of a series that I did on how women unknowingly attract toxic relationships. Or co-create toxic relationships. And what I define as a toxic relationship is a relationship where there is a mutual benefit. There is, you know, you can attract a user, an abuser, those types of relationships. There's some things that we've been conditioned to do that we don't realize. And so I talked about leading with labor, and I defined different types of labor. So there's physical labor, emotional labor, spiritual labor, right? And even sexual labor. Can we talk about that on the show? Okay, listen.
Labor.
It's labor. So, and versus leading with value.
Yes.
The main difference is when you lead with value, you're letting the person recognize who you are, your value. Like, you're letting them come to an understanding of who you are. But when you're leading with labor, you're trying to force the understanding of who you are, saying, listen, love me, desire me, want me because of everything I'm doing for you. So an example, physical labor, and this is very common I'm from the Nigerian community, right? In many West African diasporan communities as well, is this idea of when you're dating somebody, instead of getting to know them and letting them get to know you, you're trying to show them I'm wife material. And so you get into the relationship, you're cooking every day. They didn't send you, they didn't ask for it. They may not even appreciate it. You're cleaning up, you're doing laundry, you're auditioning for the role of wife.
I like that, auditioning.
You're not even a wife, you're auditioning, like, choose me, right? And what happens is sometimes you attract people who desire you simply for what you can do, not for the kind of woman that you are. So it's all about, oh, what she can do for me. People do financial labor. you're paying bills, you're getting involved. All he has to say is he has an idea, and you're like, how can I contribute to that?
How can I do that?
Yes, this is not to say that you don't, because some of the pushback I received was, are you saying you don't do anything for someone when you're in a relationship? Of course you do. Of course you love them. Of course you cook. Of course you do all these things, but you do them from an organic place of, I enjoy you and I want to show love to you, versus I'm doing this to prove that I am worthy of your love.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's a big difference there. Even I talked about emotional labor, right? Emotional labor, you then become codependent. You want them to be happy. They don't look happy. It's now your business
you're doing
to
try and make
yes,
them
it's all
happy.
about how they feel.
Oh my,
and even to the point where you neglect yourself. Some women even leave, they leave off all the things that are important to them, trying to prove to this person that they are worthy of them.
Oof.
Spiritual labor. You're the one doing 7 days dry fast.
Wow.
And then later you say you want a spiritual leader in your household.
But you've already carried that mantle on your head.
Girl, you better say it. You are the one.
Yeah.
And so then you've chosen someone who says, you know what? She's doing all the heavy lifting. Let me sit back. That's how you can attract abusers, users, or in a relationship, because you take on that leadership dynamic, you allow that person to settle into a less than dynamic. And the truth is, unfortunately, sometimes when women do this, a man who wants to lead is actually he's turned off. Because it's emasculating if a man wants to lead and you're the one taking the lead. You're the one saying, I got this. Intellectual labor, he's just sharing an idea with you. And instead of sitting and listening and trusting that he knows what he's talking about and he knows what he's doing, you then insert your ideas. Well, you should do this. That line, you should, is already a red flag, right? You should do this. Here's what you should do. Let me do this. Let me take a look at this. Let me write that proposal for you. Why? He's not an infant.
Like you say in our culture,
he's an adult. Who send you? Work no pay. So that's when you're leading with labor. And leading with labor is an attempt to control and force an intimacy before the other person is even ready. And even in platonic relationships.
Absolutely. So how can you tell? Like, just, as a young married woman, for example, when I first got married, there are so many things that you're not taught, you're not told. And you just start like, okay, I want to help, I want to cook, I want to be this wife, the wonderful wife. But how do you know that you are actually, exuding some of these characteristics that we're talking about?
I think one of the big things is self-betrayal, right? So again, this is not to say you don't do for your partner. You do for your partner, as they should also be doing for you. It should be mutual. If you are the one doing above and beyond all the time, right, there's a challenge there. If you're not seeing him return it, right? Secondly, one of the ways you can tell is if you start resenting.
Doing what you were doing.
You start feeling bad about it. You resent it. You're doing it on the surface, but you're expecting him to respond in a certain way, and you're looking for that response. You're not doing it from your heart. You're doing it to get what he needs, right? Get what you want from him. Yeah. Or you're resenting him. So you have that Martha complex. Remember Martha in the Bible? Yes. So Martha is going to Jesus saying, I'm doing all this work. Why are you allowing Mary to stay there, right? You have a Martha complex. You're doing the work, not from a place, a heart-centered, this is what I want to do. It's because I'm doing this, therefore I deserve. Yeah. Right? So that's when it becomes, I'm trying to force something. But when you're leading from a place of love and value, so for example, someone had asked me, so how do I lead with value in a relationship? Number one, recognizing your value, a thing's value takes time. And sometimes we don't want to wait. You have to let him recognize your value by you living your life the way you live your life. So if you're being yourself, if you're someone who is a homemaker, when he comes to your home, he's going to see that. If you are a giving, loving person, in the way you live your life, he's going to see that.
That's probably what attracted him to you in the first place.
You just be yourself, and it's an authentic thing versus a performative thing. So I'm very cautious about leading with labor. Even men lead with labor too. A lot of men lead with financial labor. So they are paying for things. They are doing things. In the courtship, in the dating phase, when someone is leading with labor, it's often performative, which means it won't be sustainable.
It won't be sustainable, absolutely.
Later on in the relationship, it will drop. They're just doing it to get you. But if you take your time and you let see his value, let him see your value. It's more authentic, it's honest, and then you have someone who appreciates you for your being, not for your doing.
Yes. And actually, that's a relationship that can be sustained.
That's right.
Because you are being yourself.
That's right.
You know, you're not doing something outside of yourself, and it's stressful.
That's right.
Wow, that's powerful, that's strong. So how do you, like, when you're, of course, you've identified the ways that you're leading with labor versus value, how can you make these corrections, if you've done it for 10, 20 years? I mean, after a while, the mind is a muscle. And whoever it is in a relationship, you've already gotten conditioned. How can you reverse that? If you've been married to this person for 15, 20 years, or you're in a relationship, how do you change that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. When you've created a toxic dynamic where you're the one giving and doing all the giving, the person is getting all the receiving, it can be hard. Because the minute you start to set a boundary, the minute you start to say, hey, I feel as if I need more. I need time for myself. I need to change the way things are happening. The other person is going to have a reaction because they're used to receiving. Now, in a healthy relationship, because the reality of healthy relationships is there's always change. Dynamics change, people change. The things that you maybe were doing when you were in your 20s, even if you didn't resent it, even if you loved doing it, you're now a mother, you have children, you can't do all those things. As you get a little older, maybe you were swinging from the chandeliers when you were in your 20s. When you get a little older, you're like, no, listen,
like
we have to take this thing a little slow.
The heels,
okay?
Could not be able to walk in these heels after 3 kids.
Yes. So a healthy relationship makes room for change.
Yeah, I love that.
But here's the thing, you have to give that person the opportunity to make that room. And so what happens is you have to do your own healing work and take responsibility. So sometimes what happens is you're like, I've been doing all the giving. Therefore, and you go and you attack the other person. That's not their responsibility. You did all the giving. So start within yourself. Start to ask, why were you doing that in the first place? Are there self-worth issues that you need to address within yourself? What inner work do you need to do? And that allows you to then have a conversation with your partner and to be able to say, I recognize that I'm coming from this place. I was having these things. These were my thoughts. This was my mindset then. And I have now done some work on myself. And I'd like for you to support me in my process. And here are some things that I'd like to change versus you. When you do the person becomes defensive.
Yeah, of course. Nobody likes to be pointed at and questioned. Of course, we all know we're a work in progress, but I think, especially in a relationship, when you start pointing fingers and you forget that. I love the way you pose it, where you start with yourself and then you share. It's like, help me. Yeah.
Because I believe it will make our relationship better. We're moving into a new season in our relationship without going back and saying, you know what, you're this, that. No, it's really because he came alongside you, right? I'm not saying he didn't have his own stuff, but he came alongside you, but also being willing to acknowledge that sometimes if he isn't ready to accept who you are, if he is, because if you have a user and abuser, he's not going to accept it. But if you have a healthy man, he's willing to, just like you need to be healthy enough to accept his growth and his change as well. So if you have that, it will stall. It may stall the relationship. And you have to have the ability to say, okay, if that's what happens, that's what happens.
And also just believing that all things are possible with God.
That's
right. There are some people that are just fixed and they don't want to change, but I know God can make the impossible possible.
That's right.
Thank you so much. So I want us to kind of pivot into another topic, masculine versus the feminine path to success. First, define it. Like, one thing I have to say is, how do you get some of these topics and these concepts? Is it just Holy Spirit inspired, or what allows you to kind of get those topics?
I think it's a combination, right, of a divine download, to your point, Holy Spirit inspired, but also I've been coaching women for 10 years. And I've coached primarily high achieving women, executive women. And so this comes from seeing a lot of quote unquote boss women and asking, women who have what everyone wants, #goals, but they come to me often because something is missing. They don't always know what's missing, right? But something is wrong. Something doesn't fit. I've done it the way the world said I should do it. I ticked all the boxes, but I don't feel happy. I don't feel fulfilled. And sometimes what happens is they start looking at other things in their lives, like, yeah, if my husband was different, or if my children, they're looking outside for the source of the problem, but the source of the problem is always inside. Your outer world always reflects what's happening inside of you. And so doing that, that became one of the things I started researching and started understanding the difference between the masculine and the feminine. We both have masculine, all of us have masculine and feminine. There are different traits, different ways that we show up. And so the idea is that most women naturally tend to lead with feminine, which is why we associate that with women, and most men tend to lead with masculine. But you can have men who lead with feminine and have women who lead with masculine. Now, a woman who leads with masculine, right? Or what leading with masculine looks like, the masculine is always looking externally and is project oriented, results oriented, very, let's get this organized. What are we doing? Like, always looking externally, very structured, right? Very systems. This is what needs to happen, which is why when you talk to the average man and you're saying, this is my problem, he immediately is like, let's solve it. Okay, what's the problem? Like, I don't see a problem here. Boom, 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 boom. Meanwhile, the feminine is creative, is intuitive, is flow, is kind of that, airy fairy piece, nurturing, right? Receptive.
Yeah, we're receptacles.
Right? Yes. So that is when you're leading with feminine, right? So the difference now when you are approaching work, the way we've all been taught is actually very leading with masculine. Think about it. You set a goal, you create your action plan, and you go out there and you get it done, and you execute. The other thing about leading with masculine is also very compartmentalized, right? So you put things in compartments and you move, and it's also very linear. We do this first, and then we do this. So you often hear a man say, like, I have young men that I speak to, like, when are you going to get married? He's like, when I do this, and then I will do that. Once I have this amount of money in the bank, and once I have this, then I'll get married, which makes sense for the masculine. Just think about it biologically. A man can have children even into his 70s, but it 80s. Does not work for women biologically. Why? And so when you look at that, then even looking at that, it's like, well, perhaps we're not meant to pursue success the way men do, right? In a linear fashion. Yes. Because we can't. I can't wait till I'm financially successful to have children, right? I can't say when I'm a millionaire, then I'll have a child. Well, what if you're 45 when you do that? Then it becomes harder, right? Then it becomes your fertility declines. And these are just very real facts. So, and then also we can't be as compartmentalized. A man can, because guess what? In our culture, men have wives.
Yes, true.
Women don't have wives. I mean, well,
husbands.
We have husbands, well, husband and wife, right? In general. And I'm talking about the traditional role. Concept, obviously, I know things have changed in the culture, but I'm talking about the traditional role. Very often, as a woman leader, you are still a wife, right? You are still the primary caregiver. You are still the lead parent. So you're working in the home, and now you're also working outside of the home. The way that you pursue success cannot be the way men pursue success. So if we are constantly trying to juggle balls, which is what happens when you try to pursue it like men, which is why women get exhausted. You're trying to juggle all the balls. It doesn't work. So what I teach women is another way of looking at it too, increasing your internal capacity, but also creating a new feminine system. So you're not juggling 20,000 balls, but you now have connected all the dots. And so you're just gently tossing one big ball in the air.
With your crown still on your head.
Girl, yes, yes. So you're not sacrificing yourself, but you still are pursuing success. It doesn't mean you give up your ambition, but you have to look at it from a different way and find an authentic plan for you as a woman, which is another piece of leading with the feminine. Recognizing that my design is going to be different from your design.
Correct. I love that. That is so beautiful. So, in when you're thinking about leading with your feminine, especially women like us who are in corporate America, how can because you still have to be able to show that masculine side and also still be feminine at the same time. So what advice would you give women in my shoes who are trying to juggle these two at the same time? Is it possible, by the way?
Of course. I mean, I think you need some masculine no matter what, right? So if you're going to be successful, you have to have structure. You have to have some structure. but you have to then allow room for your creativity to show. And a lot of times people would say that to me. I'm in a male-dominated industry, so how do I do it? I have to be aggressive, or my voice won't be heard. And I actually think that's not necessarily true. You don't have to leave your femininity at the door, but you do have to start valuing it very differently and leading with certain things. So, for example, there's some women who are afraid to be nurturing in the workplace because they
You'll be seen as weak.
That's what you think necessary, right? But nurturing has a lot of value. And there's a difference between nurturing and mothering, though. So a lot of women don't understand the difference between that. So they go to work trying to mother, and that is weak, right? But nurturing, a project manager is a nurturer.
Oh yes, you are.
You're taking something from ideation to actual manifestation, right? And so being able to intelligently and articulate what you do, how you do it, and in the way you do it. You don't have to sacrifice who you are. I've worked with many, many feminine leaders who redefine the way they show up in the workplace, from the physical to the emotional to and just the language that you're using. So I don't have to shout, right? I don't have to shout. Even in the mastermind course, we have the voice module, right? You don't have to raise your voice to be heard, right? But you deepen and you learn how to be authoritative as a woman. You don't have to give any of those things up. Yes. And then also leading with mastery. The more you elevate your mastery, that's the highest currency. If you are the best at what you do, you can be the most frilly feminine and the rest of them are all in, everybody in overalls. They will invite you to the table because you are literally the best at what you do.
You're bringing significant value.
And you're bringing significant value.
And you will get paid for it.
Right.
I love that. My goodness.
Right.
Ekene, see, every time we start talking, sometimes when we get on the calls, Ekene and I will call, we're talking about a project.
I know.
And we just talk about topics like this continuously. And I'm like, okay, we look at the time, it's like 1 hour, but 20 minutes is not enough. And I wish we could talk on and on and on. But can you share with us some of your upcoming programs, classes that you have coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the Iconic Women Mastermind, of which you are an alumni, of course, and we have that every year. We have a couple of cohorts. We have a cohort coming up in August, and that is a 9-month deep dive into a lot of the things we've talked about today, about elevating your mastery, leading with feminine, and really, in fact, the spiritual growth that happens as well. You become highly emotionally intelligent. You really understand how to be your best and increase your income through a very authentic and an organic path that feels good. Goodness knows we need to feel good. The other thing that I have that I'm super excited about, every year, we have the Iconic Woman Weekend.
Yes. And I don't think I've only missed one.
I know.
And I'm so looking forward to it.
Yes, we're going to be in Jamaica this year.
Yes.
And it's this opportunity for women, high achieving women, to gather. We have women coming from all over, from the UK, from Nigeria, from Ghana. And we have just booked some wonderful people joining us from Jamaica. Yes. And so we have this opportunity to gather, to replenish, to rejuvenate, but we also elevate. As you know, we do some serious masterminding, and we also do some adventures.
Yes, and I can speak to some of the adventures. Let me just look into the camera and speak directly to your heart. One of the events I went for, we went, I think, kayaking.
We did kayaking in Puerto Rico.
And then what country were we in that I went into the ocean?
No, that was in Palm Beach.
Palm Beach. Okay, that was, I thought it was a country. You can see how traumatized I was.
She was traumatized.
But coming out of all of those retreats, I come out a different person. And I'm not just saying this because Ekene is sitting right here or she's a friend. I am a product. I have seen growth not only financially, I have seen growth also in just the way I think, because I realize that one of the best ways of success is not about sometimes your hand, what you do with your hands, but I've noticed there is an intellectual growth in my mind. And that is what the Iconic Womanhood brings to the table. And I want to encourage you, check her out. And so, yes, let's talk about that. How can they reach out to you? How can they sign up?
Okay, so absolutely. My website, best place, iconicwomanhood.com. I'm also very active on Instagram, and my handle is iconicwomanhood_coach. So that's my personal Instagram. And if you come on, we do lots of great content, lots of great interviews. Absolutely. I have to have you on our IG Live.
Where do I sign up?
I know, right?
I'm so excited.
So those are two great places. I also have a podcast called Iconic Womanhood with Ekene. And we have a YouTube channel. So just look for us, look up Iconic Womanhood. You'll find us.
Definitely follow her on Instagram. She really posts some really great videos that will be benefiting to you. So guys, there you have it. I was about to say girls. Guys and girls, there you have it. Ekene, thank you so much for coming to Soul Talk with Wora. I really appreciate you. I love you from the bottom of my heart.
Same here.
Thank you. So again, thank you for joining us. Do not forget to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Soul Talk with Wora. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And again, don't forget to share with your friends and family what we just talked about, because this was a powerful, powerful conversation. You can watch our previous episodes on soultalkwithwora.com. And please make sure that you continually live a truly soulful life. Again, my name is Wora Grant. Don't forget to tune in for our next episode. Remain blessed.